come out to the NFL and you're only 20 years old?
I think especially playing, defensive line or offensive line. If you look at the improvements from guys from rookie year to year 4, it's a big difference. I think coming in at 20, 21, or 22 to then when you're 25, 26, you're really a grown man. So I think just in terms of all that strength, I think just durability. I think when you're younger you can recover better, but I think in terms of the strength, but also more importantly, just like knowledge of the game and just the mental side of it, experience, I think is really priceless.
It's a question for Tom. It's quarterback centric. Because of the Big Ten, we hear all about Brady being like 6th round and picked after 9 other quarterbacks or something. Growing up, my hero was Unitas, and neither of those guys. Well, the reason I bring him up is I think he probably would not measure on anybody's scale for any purpose, but he had an ability of leadership and seeing the field and understanding that. So my question is there a whole different sort of standard when it's time to evaluate the quarterback position?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at just at the combine, they usually aren't talking about 40 times the quarterbacks. Like usually they're talking about how they looked when they threw for receivers at the combine. That's important. How did they look on their pro day throwing the ball? I do think that the quarterback is the one position, maybe offensive line and kickers, where they're not as. Yeah, they don't care about kickers don't run 40s, So, but I think quarterback is a position I think where they still they don't overvalue the 40 in a quarterback. And they always bring up Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, 2 guys that couldn't run under a 5-second 40 to save their life, and they're 2 of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years. So. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is how carefully do they test for things like leadership, being able to see the field, all that sort of thing, or is that not done in the combine side?
Yeah, I don't know in my area of expertise on that. I don't know if you guys have any more insight.
There's a whole different set of circumstances and boundaries that quarterbacks go through. If you've ever seen that thing on ESPN. With John Gruden, you can see one time I saw an interview with Coach Patton down in New Orleans and his quarterback from Purdue, Drew Brees. They go through this ritual just before he goes to bed. They're in their meeting room night before the game on Saturday night, and the conversation goes like, well, Drew, what do you like? What do you try? Where do you like coming out? 20 coming out, and all of a sudden he rattles off a foreign language, and then he says, "Yeah, you know what? I like that." And then coach says, "Well, how about going in? How about red zone? What do you think about red zone when they show this and show that?" A total foreign language. So they're actually talking in a language that none of us understand. I mean, in football, because he's calling a play in the huddle. But the call now, compared to when I played, it's so much longer. And he knows everyone's blocking assignment. Bill Belichick, I read his book, but he said the number one thing I do on Monday morning is I sit down and we figure out protection. It's the number one thing we do. We figure out how are we going to protect that guy back there. He needs to stay clean. He can't be disrupted. He needs to stay clean. And that's the whole key there. This guy's got to have a mentality up top, and I mean, I was lucky to play with, Joe Roth and Steve Barkowski. I mean, these guys got so much talent. They're so talented. But they were slow. But they had arm speed and accuracy, and the quarterback you can't win without it. You cannot win without a quarterback.
So speaking of mentality, I read an article I think the Packers put out where, Dean, you were giving advice to Fadi about sleep and what books to read. Can you two talk about your sort of mentoring relationship?
All right, so Dean and I, we came into the same class, and it's not a coincidence like we're at because of just kind of like even going back to it, Dean and I, we met when we went on like sort of a kind of like a convention for Christianity, and one of the players we met was Matt Burke, who played for the Ravens, and we were asking him like, hey, you won a Super Bowl, like what made you great and things like that, like. And he told us like, yeah, me being at Harvard, like, I had a lot of the odds going against me, but he says one thing you can do is just surround yourself with people that have the same idea that you want. As in going to bed on time, just doing the little things. When you're surrounded by that, things become a lot easier and your dreams will become reality. So kind of with Dean, like, so I've roomed with Dean a couple times. Even now I'm rooming with him. He's kind of like, hey man, Fadi, you're not eating well. You're not eating 5 times a day, dude. Come on. Like there are guys eating more than you. Like it's competition on and off the field. Just don't be thinking that lifting weights is the way to go. It's just you gotta treat your body like a temple. So it's just Dean's kind of that guy. I wouldn't be where I was at if it wasn't for guys like him. Just kind of always pushing me and same thing. We've always kind of had this kind of this rival competition. So it's kind of great to see where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think going off that, it's really important to have guys that have the same goals as you. And I think at Northwestern sometimes it might be hard to find guys that love football as much as you do and want to play in the NFL. It's a school that attracts some of the top academic students too, and just even the football team as well. So when you have guys like that really even go back to like freshman year, sophomore year, have those goals to play in the NFL. It just forms bonds, and I think that it's pretty cool to see me and Fadi just where we were as freshmen, and just physically and also just mentally and everything in terms of our knowledge of the game and just where we're at now. And I think it's pretty cool to look back on that and to see just sort of things we overcame and also just what we've sacrificed to get here too. It's been a long, hard road as well. So, but it's been a fun process. I think it's just we're both starting out our NFL's career, so it's going to be I think great years ahead as well.
So you guys are looking forward to a big payday. Does anybody tell you how to handle your money? Is there any preparation for that?
Yeah, I think Jacob Smith and Northwestern, they do a terrific job. So in my years being here, we'd have Nick Roach and a couple guys just come in and just tell us, hey, like the money isn't what you think it is. Like Nick Roach would talk about, yeah, I was in the state of California. They took everything from me. So, just with taxes and just like, and he was telling us like we had financial advisors come and just saying that like, before you know, you're paying for rent, you're paying for this, and that's how like it's really easy for players to get caught up in getting caught up and just becoming in debt. So I think Northwestern, I think we're fortunate enough to go to Northwestern and just them hiring people to really show us. So like for me, like I said, I haven't been drafted yet, or I don't know how much money I'm gonna get. So like it won't really like register to me until I see my bank account go from like. It's maybe something similar to Dean, hopefully, but like I said, when that day happens, I'll be ready for it, hopefully.
Yeah, I haven't picked a financial advisor yet. I've talked to numerous ones, and many of are also Northwestern alumni, but I have an accountant, and that was a process of filing your taxes and tax returns. But yeah, I think it's important to know that like we're also young too, so we have to be smart in balancing sort of like the time value of money, because if we invest right, we can have maybe double that in 12 years. But also, if things don't work out, we have to fall back on that money if we want a good job in 2 years, or things don't work out in the NFL. So it's just, I think, just balancing just where you want to go, possibly going back to school and we're getting your MBA, but also just being smart about your money, not spending it in dumb ways. And I think we're both pretty frugal guys ourselves, so it's pretty easy just to both economic majors actually, so we know how to think rational and to do all that stuff. So yeah, it's going well.
So when I was drafted in February, I didn't get my first check until July. So I had no money. Meanwhile, I was drafted in the first round. I was still negotiating with the Bears. I had no money. I was broke. So I ran into an alumni, and he goes, Ted, he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm working down here. I got a part-time job. I'm working out every day, the whole thing. And he goes, you want me to lend you some money? And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, I can lend you 20 grand. And I went, 20 grand? Are you out of your mind? You're going to lend me 20? Whoa, you're going to pay me back, I said, oh yeah, of course. So I went down there and went to the B of A and I put in 20 grand. He gave me a check, wrote it out for 20 grand, and I put it in my account. And she goes, would you like to order some really fancy checks? I said, checks? What do you mean checks? So I'll just come here and draw cash when I want. She goes, no, you have to have a checking account. I had never written a check in my life and I was 22 years old. I didn't have any money. What was I going to write? Come on, I had a paper route since I was 9 years old. I cut lawns. I lived in cash. I went to college and my scholarship was $144.50 a month. I mean, you went right to your dorm or whatever. There's no writing checks. And I had to learn how to write a check. I said, oh my gosh, I got a long road ahead of me, man.
I was the exact same way. And actually, yesterday, I wrote my first check. So, I literally went on, it was for tax returns. I literally went on Google and tried to figure out how to write it out and tried to, what the memo meant and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what it is. All right, I got it. So yeah, I guess we're the same boat there. 22, I'm 22.
When did I ever write the word thousand? I never wrote the word thousand.
Exactly.
How do you, was that a capital T? What am I supposed to?
So, what's it like growing up in Illinois and playing for a team in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
It's very cool. I was actually more of a Bears fan growing up, so it is nice to play in the same division and to play to be a part of that historic rivalry between the Bears and the Packers. But I've always just admired the way the Packers have been as a team, as an organization, the players they've had, just their ability to develop guys and always be a consistent winner at a very high level. So, and I always said going in the draft that if I could play for any team, it'd be the Packers, just because of their ability to develop guys and just the atmosphere they have in Green Bay. So, I was very blessed on draft day.
This has been amazing because I don't think we have any idea. This is, Kathy, great idea. You guys investing your time in telling us all this today. But Tommy, my question is completely different. In your introduction, not when you were in the pros, but in your introduction when it said that you also train other sports. So what other sports do you spend your time in?
Well, is this still on?
Yeah, you're good.
Can you hear me? You turn it off. It's off.
Well, that's the end of the time. Put in another.
Time's up. Oh, there. Okay. Yeah, I've worked with, we've worked with figure skaters. I trained an Olympic bobsledder for the 2010 Olympics, Olympic speed skaters. Most of what we do is not professional athletes or Olympic athletes. Most of it's high school and junior high, even youth. I have an 8-year-old daughter. She's in our youth program. So it's really like virtually every sport, because what we really do is teach athletic development, and teaching athletes young and older, and how to move well in a way that you're not going to get hurt, how to build a body that's strong and resilient, and so you really look at whatever the sport is. Baseball players, I have a couple of pitchers that are in the minor leagues that I work with in the off season right now, and but basketball, lacrosse is very big, fastest growing sports, a lot of lacrosse, a lot of soccer, track. We get a lot of track athletes because of our reputation on speed development. I'm trying to think. I had an equestrian come in, so that was kind of unique. But it's just, it's never boring. It's a wide range. Football is my favorite to train, but it's probably not even our biggest volume of athletes. It's probably not football. It's probably soccer or lacrosse.
Where did you get your training? I mean, where did you go?
To do what I do?
Yes.
I shouldn't be able to do what I do. I'm a fraud. Sometimes I feel, I have a mechanical engineering degree from Northwestern, which prepared me very well to train athletes for a living. It did. Honestly, I feel I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change what I studied, because I think it's helped me to train my mind and how to think and how to approach training in a little bit of a different way maybe than other people would. But I had to learn the physiology behind what we do, and I learned a lot from Larry Lilja, who's a fantastic strength coach and was a mentor of mine. He was my strength coach, and I worked for him. When I was at Northwestern early on, they flew me around where I could meet with different experts, especially with regards to speed development. My brother was playing for the Atlanta Falcons at the time, and I flew down and met with Al Miller and Lauren Seagraves, who was working with the Falcons. And then you just, really, so I don't have a degree in what I do, but the degree I have, I think helps me more than if I had studied exercise science, actually. But, it's kind of, to train athletes well, a lot of it's based on science, but the problem is that we don't fully understand the science of how our bodies work, and we never will. So the research is always expanding and growing, and the way that we're doing things now are different than the way we did it 15 years ago. When I first started doing the speed program at Northwestern in 2000, I stopped doing static stretching before running workouts. These guys don't even know what static stretching means, but before that we would jog 3 laps, then we'd get, lined up on each yard line, and you'd bend down and touch your toes and count to 10, and you go right over left, and the strength coach was guiding through that. And then we got into studies have never shown that static stretching reduces the risk of pulling a muscle. And, you start to look at, dynamic warm-up is really what you want to do, because you're trying to prepare the body for movement that is dynamic, whereas when you do static stretching, you're kind of putting the muscle and the nervous system to sleep, really. And so when I first started doing that, Claire's like, oh, wait, I don't feel like I'm warmed up because I haven't touched my toes for 10 seconds, and so, now you don't have to really do that fight anymore, but, so it's just, but it's part of it is self-taught on, learning the science, learning the research, staying up to date on things, and then it's also the application of it, the art of being a coach, and I write up, every year I agonize for, probably 30 hours on what I'm going to do for the combine program, even though I've done it for 18 years, and I could just regurgitate it. I always want to make it better. I always want to understand what I'm doing, and then whatever plan I have, you should always plan it in pencil, because then I start to train them, and I'm like, oh, that's not working, or how you guys feeling? I'm always talking, how you feeling? They're like, I feel like you watch them grabbing something, or you sore, and you're trying to understand, and then you always modify it, so there's a real art to coaching that I don't think you can learn in school either, and that really comes from experience, and but it's fun, it's a neat field.
Dean, going from level to level in your sport, there's always a big change. What was the biggest change going to the pros from college? Was there anything that surprised you?
I think the college game now is more of a spread, no huddle game. It's a very up-tempo game. The NFL now is it's almost like a shorter game sometimes. I think the games go by very quickly. A lot of teams run the ball, and that's their main thing, just the pro-style offenses. So I think just the physicality of that, just the downhill running schemes, and just everyone there is just bigger, stronger, faster. That's just really how it is. And for me, I was playing more inside. I played more of a D end at Northwestern. I was playing more so the Packers are a 3-4 defense. So I was playing both inside and outside. So I was playing, I was getting more double teams on the inside, and just I think getting used to that physicality was, I think, an adjustment at first. So yeah, I would say just the physicality of the NFL game, and just the difference in the players you're going against. There's in college you can find 1 or 2 guys in college in the line that are not very great players you could take advantage of, but every guy in the NFL is there for a reason, and it's just being consistent in that way too.
Well, listen, that about does it. We've gone over our allotted time, and we need to tuck you guys in and get you home on time. But I learned a lot too in just preparing for this, and of course being up here is a lot of fun. Great to be around 2 young guys who've got their whole careers ahead of them, and I think the science behind what Tommy does is absolutely outstanding. And we were talking about before we came in here how You know, when I trained back in high school, in college, and the NFL, I did the same thing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I did the same exact thing. There's nothing else, you know, and it's just really great to see guys like Tommy that can spread his wisdom and his wealth and coaching and his inspiration to young guys like this. And but I think pro football is the boringest thing in the world. It is so boring. These games are just like, oh my God, if a guy gets 350 yards of total offense, it's a big day in the NFL. College football is so much more fun. So much more fun. Thanks so much for coming.